Can you identify the changes here? This is a skin biopsy. See, there's a peculiar sign here. Look at the basal layer of cells. So this is how the lesion was, a verrucous pigmented lesion on the back from an elderly man. So look at all the changes. Start methodically. Observe the keratin layer, the changes in the keratin, then the epidermal thickness, the changes in the epidermis. Yeah. What are the changes that you have identified? Could you identify all the features? Don't bother about the diagnosis. What is it? Bowen's disease. Let's listen to Anuradha. She is going to read about all the features from the book.
Bowen's disease is a form of carcinoma in situ and accordingly shows full thickness involvement of the epidermis and sometimes the pilosebaceous epithelium by atypical keratinocytes. This is associated with disorderly maturation of the epidermis, mitosis at different levels, multinucleate keratinocytes and dyskeratotic cells. Usually there is loss of granular layer with overlying parakeratosis and sometimes hyperkeratosis. Several histological variants have been described and more than one of these patterns may be present in different areas of the same lesion. In the psoriasiform pattern, there is regular acanthosis with thickening of the retail edges and overlying parakeratosis. In the atrophic form, there is thinning of the epidermis which shows full thickness atypia and disorganization. There is usually overlying hyperkeratosis and parakeratosis. The verrucous hyperkeratotic type is characterized by hyperkeratosis, papillomatosis and sometimes intervening pit-like invaginations. The irregular variant shows irregular acanthosis and often extensive chronic inflammation in the underlying dermis. In the pigmented type, there is melanin in individual tumor cells and melanophages in the underlying dermis. The horny layer usually is thickened and consists largely of parakeratotic cells with atypical hyperchromatic nuclei. Epidermis shows acanthosis with elongation and thickening of the retail edges, often to such a degree that the papillae located between the retail edges are reduced to thin strands. Throughout the epidermis, the cells lie in complete disorder, resulting in a windblown appearance. Many cells appear highly atypical, showing large hyperchromatic nuclei. Multinucleated epidermal cells containing clusters of nuclei are often present. And rather characteristic feature is the presence of cells showing atypical individual cell keratinization. Such dyskeratotic cells are large and round and have a homogeneous, strongly eosinophilic cytoplasm and a hyperchromatic nucleus. The infiltrate of atypical cells in Bowen's disease frequently extends into follicular infundibula and causes replacement of follicular epithelium by atypical cells down to the entrance of the sebaceous duct. Even though the marked atypicality of the epidermal cells includes the cells of the basal layer, The border between the epidermis and dermis everywhere appears sharp and basement membrane remains intact. Finding in Bowen's disease is vacuolization of the cells, especially in the upper portion of the epidermis. Difference exists between bovenoid actinic keratosis and Bowen's disease. They may differ merely in size, with the bovenoid actinic keratosis usually being smaller than Bowen's disease. In some cases of Bowen's disease, there are single atypical cells scattered among benign keratinocytes in a pattern of pagetoid Bowen's disease or pagetoid squamous cell carcinoma in situ. That must be differentiated from superficial spreading melanoma in situ. If necessary, with the use of immunostaining for keratin markers and S100